Hello guys, welcome to episode 9 of Let's Dive In. Today's book is Sun Tzu, Art of War. This is a really famous book and talks about three main things: how to be a good general, how to win wars, and about China in general. What do you think about the program of tonight, Daniel?
I'd also say it's very comprehensive when it comes to on how you have to approach conflict, not only externally but internally. That's just my opinion because I've once read the book.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's your book. Go on.
So this book was written 221 years before Christ during the Zhou dynasty. Yeah, I think. Zhou dynasty. And it was a period where a lot of great battles were happening, and there was 100 schools. So 100 philosophical schools of a diversity that we never again reach in history. And so that book was written during that time with lots of wars, and Sun Tzu at the time was a general and a philosopher. Do you have anything to say about that?
Do you know anything about Sun Tzu, his success when it came to his military capabilities?
I think he was more a theoretician than a general overall.
So he's that business teacher who doesn't own a business.
Yeah, but
nonetheless,
his book has a great impact on humanity.
We can see it being used today,
yeah. And what do you think about the 100 different philosophical schools? Because for me, that's also why China prospers. It's because they have that great deal of diversity, great deal of different ideas that leads to foster in general.
They never underestimate anything. They have schools for many different things that some other cultures may underestimate, and that makes them very comprehensive. And when you have 100 different schools and 100 different people, and you have they've had a high population even then, yeah?
Yeah.
So you end up having people like Sun Tzu, and his book became so successful that it's still used today.
It's still a bestseller today in the case of business.
And I think it's applied a lot throughout history. I mean, we can talk this later, but I think Putin, perfect example of
Putin talks about that. And so according to Sun Tzu, conflict is an integral part of the human condition. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you agree with that statement or not? Do you think conflict is part of human nature?
Yes. I mean, at one point we had to survive. So it makes sense for us to be a bit of at least have that in us. And we kind of enjoy it at the same time. I mean, you can look at by the Colosseum. We like that. And even today, our mini Colosseum would be Dana White and his UFC. But that gets you going like nothing else. So we do like it. Nothing else that boosts your adrenaline more and gets you more excited than fight. And
I think there's not a single human that has never been in a conflict. Even the Dalai Lama, the great Buddhist, probably had a lot of conflicts during his life.
And if it's not just conflict, it's human nature of conquering, but not conquering in the sense of conquering land. It's the idea of having things for ourselves.
Conquering ideas sometimes. Yeah. Conquering debates, conquering the mind.
Yeah.
And so then Sun Tzu said that, humans have conflict, and when the moral person, which is the state in that, in that question, has conflict, but it triggers war. Basically, a conflict to the level of a state, especially at that time where there was no diplomacy, you were just going in.
Yeah.
It was greatly war. And so China, up until today, has a contempt for war and prefers culture. So war is base, must be short and decisive in order to return to the desired state, which is peace and harmony. So at the time, the book of Sun Tzu was not really appreciated because war has always been seen as a bad thing in China. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think about this?
I don't know if they have the most peaceful past.
Mao Zedong probably
I don't know if they had the most peaceful past. But I will say they are very... this is my personal, but even from what I've read of Chinese people and their culture, they look a lot into not what is happening now, but what is going to happen in generations from now. They're planners. Their people are planners. So for them, war is
an art. But it's at the time it was really seen as an art. It was during in the rules you could not face the back to your enemy. It was all that's really codified war. Which was really fast.
They made it, they created a system for it. But what I was trying to say is that they plan things ahead, and war kind of messes that up. War is like sometimes a good restart, and Chinese people don't believe in that restart. They believe in making things last. For them and their culture, no.
Yeah,
and that's smart. War at the end of the day, as much as it creates innovation, but we spoke about this in a different podcast. That is arguable.
Yeah,
it could just be a strategy, and. At the same time, you would look at today, we have so many less wars, and look how far we've come. In comparison to the time when we had Peace of Westphalia, just before that we had 30-year war.
And then even after that, we had Napoleonic Wars, we had all those things. Then, I think progress...
That's a very debatable topic, but that's completely something else.
Yeah, but during the peace of the century of peace during the Roman Empire, great innovations happened.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Exactly. So they also talk about the fact that they value generals a lot because they practice the art of war, and they're saying good iron is not used to make nails, that really basic thing. So good men are not used to make soldiers. They're made to be general, to be tacticians, to be leaders, and also I think there's that great concept, which I agree with, and I think it's really interesting, that the great humans in the Chinese culture are not designed to make soldiers. As in other cultures, maybe like the Western one, the time of the Crusades, etc., the big leaders were seen as warriors, like you were going to the front, and everyone was valuing the fact of going up to the war with your sword in your hand. And that was like giving value to those leaders. But in China, no, good men are not used to make soldiers.
Yeah, I mean, they believed in the idea that all warfare is based on deception and strategy and getting things, zigzagging your way through everything. And yeah, they would use the best people for that. Don't use someone who can, I don't know, design a house, have to build it.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, of course, that's the principle of the book, Art of War. Sun Tzu say you need to study all these factors before a conflict. There's 6 of them. Do you think you can name like some of them or not? Maybe try some guesses.
Know your enemy.
Yeah, know your enemy, more or less.
Disguise yourself from your true intentions.
But that's kind of true, and he talks about that throughout the book, but it's way more practical principles.
Maybe timing?
Timing is one. Of those 6s. So the first one is who has the better doctrine? Who is better at basically brainwashing its soldiers and making them think that they are gonna win? So I think this is important, and even we can apply that to business in a sense, like if you have a good story, if you have a good narrative, pow, you have a better doctrine.
I mean, fake it till you make it, and I mean, as a Ukrainian, I can give a historical example of this. Very, very good one. I mean, if we're going to be completely honest, as much as the Soviets and people who are of Soviet origin pride themselves on World War II, in complete honesty, the Germans were, you can bleep this, but fucking us.
Yeah.
They were fucking us completely. If you look at the numbers, it's tragic. And the only reason we were able to continue was because of the insane propaganda. And it's so strong that it still works today, that every life was worth it. Even though it was not even like strategy, it was just pure massacre of our own people. I mean, we have that same thing with Stalin. I mean, we don't blame him, even though the guy probably killed more Russians than Hitler did. And we had this thing called Ni shagu nazad, which means not one step back. One step back.
And you think that was engraved in everyone's brain? Like
Not one step back, yes. And people had that. They were like literally screaming, based on like historical, not one step back, like no way, that's not happening. You have to look at the maps. Hitler was pretty close, and like not one step back is probably the reason to why we ended up winning, because
not one step back.
No one took a step back.
And the people that took step backs were getting killed like in a matter of seconds.
If you look at the death count like per day during the war, and what was the very famous battle? The Battle of Stalingrad. It's outrageous, and literally based on the fact that not one step back. Of course, there are other things, but there was no way they were going to lose that.
Okay, so the first thing is who has the better doctrine. Apparently, the USSR was great at it.
Yeah.
The second one is who is more competent. So that one is really basic. It's like more on strategies and thinking. The third one is who benefits from the timing. So I feel like one, that's very true, and he says that, you know, countries that are on great momentum, like momentum matters. If a country is in a really expansion momentum, everyone's happy, there's economic preparation, like better doctrine works better because people are happy, more competent, you have like fostering better thing, and so the timing is really important. And
that's interesting, because when you said timing, when I said timing, I wasn't inferring to like the company, how far the country's progressed. I was referring to strategy.
It's both.
Yeah.
In that thing, and I think timing is really important.
Blitzkrieg.
Yeah, blitzkrieg, exactly.
And this is, you can probably research this, but a reason to why Russia had such a disadvantage was because when Germany attacked, we anticipated the attack.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from defense, offense to attack. So when you go into attack position, you kind of open yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
And the Germans beat us by like a week. So when they went in right to our attack, and they pushed very quickly towards Moscow. So timing is
timing
crazy.
matters. Timing really matters.
That could have been really bad.
And even in the business side, timing matters. When you want to raise funds, when you want to timing really, really, really matters. The fourth one is who benefits from the terrain, terrain. So like from the
adapting to the terrain, adapting to using
your environment
to one's advantage. Yeah. Finding how to fixate yourself correctly.
And that's why defending yourself is usually way easier, is because you know the terrain, you know like what's surrounding you, you know all those things.
Napoleon was extremely successful in this. When it came to fighting in the hills, he was very good at maneuvering himself around the enemies. And they had no clue what to do because they're going up the mountain, but he's already behind them.
Yeah, and he gives an advice of never fighting in the mud. He gives the advice of like waiting just before the mud, so like when the people are crossing fire, basically it's really basic, but the terrain is a big thing. The fourth one is who has better command, like who is the best general at the doctrine, at the competence, at all those things, and who has like the closest relationship to its soldiers, because I think that matters. What do you think about that?
I think so. I think if I was a soldier, I'm basing this off like things like when I used to play tennis.
Mm-hmm.
The way my coach would impact me would be very like dramatic. If I was a good friend of my coach, but this is just me, I wouldn't perform as well. So that's kind of weird, but I wouldn't perform as well because I was like, he's my friend.
And feared rather than loved.
Yeah, and my other coach was a friend, but a friend who let me know, you're playing shit. And I jumped the rankings. So I think very important.
Really important.
If you can find that middle spot and control at least 80% of your soldiers very successfully, like find exactly what they want. Because there's going to be outliers, but...
And I think even as a commander, it's really important to be like relatable and admirable. And that applies, I think, in life as well, like for everything.
Again, Napoleon, he was fighting in battle, so the soldiers felt like he was family.
Yeah, exactly.
He's doing what they're doing, and it's like, whoa.
And that quote when he realizes that he thinks he's a god.
Yeah.
Like
when he sent those people on the bridge.
Yeah, that was blowing up.
Like, what, you can say it?
I don't know if I have the exact quote, but he says basically, at this exact moment, I realized I was a god or something.
Yeah, and at this moment, I realized I was the greatest man alive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that is badass.
That is really badass. But that shows the importance of command.
Yeah.
Because those men were willing to die, one, for their country. So we go back to doctrine, narrative, and all those things. And second, for Napoleon. People loved, but when I mean loved Napoleon. And so who has the better command, I think, is a big part of victory. And so this last strategy, the last factor to analyze before a country is who has the better method. So maybe like ethics, justice, strategy, all those things. Who has the better method of establishing a plan? So there's many ways to like arrive to your how do you say that? Arrive to conclusions. You can use ethics, you can use justice, you can use and basically playing on those levers, if you do it right, is what brings you to victory. And I think this is really interesting because you can see different leaders using different levers and being great at it. For example, Adolf Hitler, taking a controversial
Nonetheless, a
example,
great orator and a great leader. I can say that confidently, even as a Jew.
Even as a Jew, you can say that.
Like piece of shit, but pretty good.
And justice was a big part of his like speech, saying that poverty is triggered by the Jews, and to establish justice, we should like forbid what they're doing. We should And so playing on justice, really important. Playing on ethics, I think the US does it perfectly. There's no democracy in Iraq. Let's free them from dictatorship.
Yeah, but sometimes like the US, it's kind of even undeniable. Like, but yes, they have no female rights. They have no gay rights. They have nothing. And so yeah, but yeah, no, Hitler, he used it perfectly. Not even with that, he used it perfectly just going against Europe in general, because they had hyperinflation. There's photos in Germany where kids are sitting on stacks of cash because the money was worthless.
I know, yeah, that's for sure.
And they were bullying those Germans. Like, French people were coming to Germany and just owning that place and being like, haha, we crushed you.
Yeah, because of the Traité de Versailles in 1919.
You beat them. French people beat Germans. You beat them in World War I. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And that,
and I think those harsh measures, trigger by the method of justice. Like, this is unjust. They have all those things. They fucked us in the ass after World War I. They took everything from us. We have to pay debt that we should not be paying. And I think the concept of those levers are great. And then there's a lever of strategy, for example, with Napoleon, who was just like, let's fucking conquer land.
Yeah.
For the sake of France, for the sake of royalty, I guess.
Nationalistic.
Yeah, nationalistic perspective. And that worked. So then Sun Tzu talks about the great strategies the great strategists win in this order. So one, measure. So measure the differences of forces you have with your enemy. Measure like all those metrics. You measure all the metrics. That's the first thing. Second thing, estimate. So estimating those same metrics in a fight. What terrain am I going in? What timing do I have? And you estimate, given your force, given their force, what is the probable outcome. Then with those estimations, you calculate what are the probabilities of winning. You continue by comparing by like the different country and the different opposing. And the last thing is evaluate the probabilities of victory given all those like specific factors. And I think this is a really like method by method way of winning. And go for it.
And do you do that during war, or do you do it before? Or do you do it during like?
It's before. It's planning before.
Yeah, because I thought about it, and it makes sense. I'm just because I'm Ukrainian, I inherently like look at this from the Putin aspect.
Mm-hmm.
How many of these does he hit? Even the levers you spoke about, like he hits most things, no?
But
if you think
pretty much all of them, huh?
Yeah, like, I don't think he expected when he calculated it to be so unsuccessful. He definitely had the aspect of telling the people, nationalistic one, we're Russia, we're the best, we're the strongest, we're the biggest, and he definitely had the US is bullying us aspect, treating us badly after everything. Because I feel like it's very important for our listeners, for example, to understand how impressive this is. Because when was this book written again? 200 or something years ago? No, 200 years before Christ, right?
Yeah. 221 years before Christ.
So if we're doing the math, it's like 2,200 and something years ago, and that's how little war has changed.
But I think that's the human brain now.
That's crazy.
Even technology, even if we change, or nature by evolution, we don't have time to change. Maybe those brain chips are gonna make us change
and that's
a lot.
Another topic, which is gonna be a great debate, because I find that to be terrible. I don't. But
and listening to our previous podcast, reason I think is the way.
Yes.
We'll discuss that later. I think both of us have great arguments about this. But basically evolution.
Yeah, no, I agree. Something I like that he says is victorious warriors win first, then go to war. What do you think about that?
Win first, but so what do they win?
You win before even going in. So you have to basically preparing very thoroughly before engaging in conflict. Something Putin didn't do, and that put him in a very uncomfortable and difficult position for the past 3 years. So I find that to be very important.
I know, but Sun Tzu says ponder and deliberate before you make a move.
Yeah.
Like, and every battle is won before it is fought. So, what, like, all those factors I'm talking about, those are strategies and environments that you measure before going to war. And even, like, if those factors are not favorable to you, you should stay at home, defend, and because you know that defense has a comparative advantage to the attack.
Yeah.
And so when the enemy thinks it has an edge over you, that's when you attack. You need to create those little gaps. Basically, like now with companies, we see when there's a gap in the market, when there's a gap in thing, bam, you go.
Appear weak when you're strong, and appear strong when you're weak. I think that's something he actually says.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. And he also uses the other way. Like if you see your enemy looking a bit too strong, ask yourself question, because sometimes hide something, you know. And
yeah. What is your opinion on kind of not going off topic, but about the quote, if he is taking his ease, give him no rest, and I'm gonna throw in Israel-Palestine just for some controversy. Do you want me to repeat?
Yeah.
If he is taking his ease, so like weakening, give him no rest.
I think that
we could be a bit controversial. We could be a bit only 100 viewers. Only 100 viewers. I think
yeah, but the Palestinian-Israel conflict is really complicated to analyze. I would say no, even from a like real perspective, I don't know what you consider Israel is being at ease. Palestinians are being at ease. I would say that
when he says at ease, it's not them like trying to negotiate peace. Which
no, it's like chilling a bit too much.
Not even that, just weakening. When you're weakened down, continue hitting. That is basically the message. So I have if you have no opinion and you want to be
no, for me, at ease means sometimes like when you see too much comfort in a society, that's where you go for it. So maybe, and again, like this is so fucking controversial. I don't want to take part in this, but basically, you could have said that Hamas, the 7th of October, sees an opening because like people are, I don't know, they haven't seen war in a long time. There was not have been like a big conflict since a lot of time, and they're like, bam, we see that opening, they're at ease, we do a bunch of terrorist attack, we kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And then the retaliation is justified, but same as we talked in law today, like it's a question of proportionality.
Yeah. I have my resting opinions, but yeah, that's something interesting because I think it applies to both of them. They both kind of found each other weak and decided to take advantage of it. One did it in a very interesting way, but the other one did it in an even more interesting way.
And is doing it at the moment, like continuing.
And is doing it at the moment. But that's a question of trust, long-term negotiations, failed negotiations. One country, but how the United States would use ethics. One country has no rights. One country is run by a terrorist.
Yeah, this is like so.
But nonetheless, it's kids dying. It's a lot of
pain
and just confusion.
Yeah, I feel like I agree with you.
But just for the Palestine one, if your enemy is secure at all points, this is a quote from the book. Be prepared for him. If he's in superior strength, evade him. So that my logic behind it is just to, again, add a bit more controversy.
Go for it.
What do you think about Palestine being completely aware of the fact that they have no chance, that they are going to get absolutely obliterated? Because I promise to you, Israel's doing what it's doing, but if something like this happened to the US, which something kind of did, and they they destroyed that country, doesn't that technically justify them? Because if he's superior, which they are, they are. Why didn't they just avoid them?
But I think we talked about that in like previous podcasts. Dogmas, religion, ideologies, and sometimes humans they act irrational. In my opinion, and those beliefs It can be Islam in that certain example. That can be freedom because of oppression in other examples. And I think those beliefs beat rationality. And because it beats rationality, but that leads to what it leads. I think to like lots of also great movements. I'm not like during the French Resistance, for example,
Yes.
which is a totally different case. We should not do a parallel between that. But the resistance was doing irrational acts because they were getting like blatantly fucked by the Germans, and they were still going off, bombing those rails, bombing those things. And yeah, I think ideologies in general, which is super dangerous, and I do not advocate for those dogmas, are the reason why humans act against Sun Tzu rules. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think at the end of the day, I think we have this every single podcast, maybe one podcast where we kind of discuss God, but every single one. So please listen to our podcast. Rationality seems to be key.
Rationality seems to be key. But at the same time, could humans live without religion? Like Sun Tzu talks about all those leverage, and I think the doctrine one can be part of religion, you know?
You have to ask yourself a theoretical question. If we had a civilization come to us that is 1,000 times more advanced, would they have a god?
I don't know. I have no clue. What's your take on
I
that?
think yes. It's something, again, we discussed in a different podcast. And again, listen to our podcast. Human beings and anything that is superior and has consciousness probably refuses to admit that they are here for no reason. However, slowly, for example, me, I am starting to accept that fact that I am genuinely here for no reason, and my podcast will eventually be forgotten, and there is no reason to anything, but that is a terrible way to approach life, but it is probably the most likely.
Yeah, and I think Nietzsche talks about that when he say we killed God, and talks about basically meaningless of human life. And there's two ways of taking that. I see many people, the vast majority of them, saying that Nietzsche is a depressive author, that you want to kill yourself when you read him. But I think, no, there is that way of reading Nietzsche where you're like, life is meaningless, my actions probably have no consequences in the large scale of things, and so let's just make the most out of it, let all doors open, and yet stay rational, please guys, stay rational.
In anything you do. Maybe not sometimes when it comes to behaviors within your family. Like, so maybe not sometimes when it comes to relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But even then,
but I think
keep it there.
I think rationality in relationships is really important. Huh? I'm taking personal life as an example, which is wrong to do in multiple types of debates. But I feel like having a rational list of wants for a potential partner or for love in general, which is like something people do in my close circle, is something that can seem like a love killer for a lot of people, but in my opinion is something necessary, because if you tick those lists like one by one, you're more likely to have a good relationship with the other person.
Yeah. I'm a guilty romantic.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm a guilty romantic. I think... I don't know, have you watched that scene in Interstellar where the girl refused, and she says love is above, but she gives a much better description than I ever could. The director is a writing genius.
Mm-hmm.
But I think some things you don't need to sometimes listen to rationality and have hope, even though it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to go on a long distance relationship for 3 years because it's irrational, probably going to fail. Statistically speaking, it almost always does.
Mm-hmm.
But what if? It's that what if factor. But that's in
that position, to come back on Sun Tzu, because we've done another topic, you study these factors before the end of it, rationally. What's the better doctrine? No, I'm joking. But it's like you make a list of what can go wrong, what can go right. You decide on your level of implication in that relationship accordingly to those metrics. And I think even if being a guilty romantic is sometimes more enjoyable, etc., maybe it's not the best approach. Or I might be totally wrong. I'm 19 years old. I don't pretend to have like the science of truth. But I think from my experience, from the data that I've seen, and from everything, rationality is key.
But
Like-
we're not telling you to go to your girlfriend's house right now and be like, okay, number 1, timing.
Number 2, who has better command?
Yeah. Who's the boss here? But I think, stay rational in whatever you do. And if any of you guys are here, future generals, which we're sure our subscribers and our viewers are very special. And,
Matthew.
Matthew, again. Matthew, build that plane.
But yeah, no, I think rationality is the key.
Yeah.
Do you need to discuss anything else? This is the end of the content of the book for me.
Okay. I would just like to end with a quote.
Go for it.
And I agree with this. And I think this is the best way to summarize all this. The greatest victory is one that requires no battle.
Wow, that's so deep.
Thank you.
I agree with it. And we'll let you guys reflect on that. It was episode 9 of Let's Dive In. Have a great evening if it's the evening for you.
Yeah.
And goodbye.
Thank you very much.